full disclosure, these particular clips, this audio session are, well, unedited. Have you ever had those moments at night where no matter what you do, you can't sleep? You could go to bed as early as you want, or as late as you want, or maybe even after a really long day of work, or an exhausting whatever that you did. You just can't fall asleep no matter how much your body wants to. During these times, your mind kind of starts to wander. I'm pretty sure you know what I'm talking about. You're driving to work. You're driving cross country. You're driving anywhere. Or maybe you're exercising. You're going for a run, and your mind just begins to wander. Well, at night, during these sessions that I have, during these times, I also start to feel these things. My mind starts to wander to things that you don't even remember, things that you haven't thought about in years, decades. There's a sense of nostalgia. There's a sense of uncertainty. There's a sense of anything and everything. At night, during these long nights, your mind starts to wander. Now, to be honest with you, I'm recording this particular audio because it is one of those nights for me. Here I am. I look outside. Everything's quiet. But my mind, nonetheless, starts to wander. And to be honest with you, if I were to sit here and tell you that I'm recording this just because my mind is starting to wander and it's late at night, it's not particularly true. I'm making these kind of clips, these audio files, just to, well, it's to share an experience, but it's also to catalog, it's to categorize, it's also to kind of put something out there in the meantime. My mind starts to wander, and it goes to stories, it goes to events that I've heard from other people's lives, from my own life. All these stories are true. Some of these stories are based on truth. And some of these stories are fiction. But the experiences are nonetheless grounded in reality. Now, what do I mean when I say that? Some of these stories are, quite frankly, not mine to tell. But they are nonetheless things that I've heard. Things that I feel. Empathy. So during these particular sessions, during these long nights, when I tell these stories, I will be mitigating some details. Some of them are from my life. Some of them are from others I know. But I mitigate details. I might change some details here and there just to maintain anonymity. You know, it's part of what you should do. And as such, these stories start to develop a life of their own. I sit here and I think about it. I start contemplating about what they are. And your mind kind of starts to wander, and it wanders and it goes down very dark places. I'd like to say that during those runs, during these nights, my mind just goes to nostalgic moments. But more often than not, it's contemplating more of the darker, the tragic stories that I know, the experiences that I've seen. Now, this seems like a rather long preface. It's a rather long forward. And to be honest with you, it is a little bit. But I feel like it needs to give some type of adequate introduction, because I do want to give a sense of preface, a sense of, hey, these are experiences, these emotions, these tragic events are nonetheless real. Some fiction might be thrown in there, some things to mask certain details, personal privacy. But stories told, such as, I don't know, name a great TV show that you might know. Why do you watch them? There's fiction, but they still make you feel something. And that makes you want to watch. It wants to make you consume the content. Now, I'm not going to tell any stories as grand as, I don't know, some captivating TV show or movie, because there's no picture. It's just my voice. And the night that causes my mind to whirl and whirl and whirl. So when I say I, and when I talk about these stories during these nights, the I might actually be my experience. But more often than not, it's me showing empathy. It's me placing myself in their perspective, telling it from their perspective. If you're still here, this is where the story begins. So let me try to paint you a picture that I see when I sit here in this dark room, in this quite long night. Imagine a city with buildings and skyscrapers touching the clouds, bustling sidewalks, voices heard at every corner street, at the bodega, the crosswalk, the bustling of students. Well, it is an urban center, a sprawling metropolis. The sun is quite high in the sky. It's warm. You go across the city, you hear the trains going by. You hear the rattling on the tracks. And on this particular day, as you start moving across the city and down the coast, you can start to smell the sea. You can smell the salt. You know the smell. You can hear the waves crashing in the distance. And as you get closer, all your senses, all the nostalgia, all the memories, have you ever felt about the sea? They hit you. That distinctive sea, that distinctive smell of the salt, the cool breeze, the sandy beach, the boardwalk, and the little edges where you start moving back into the city. And this is where the story is set. In one of those high-rise apartments, a group begins to descend and they start walking towards the beach. The path will take them across 2 streets, 2 intersections, and eventually up some stairs onto that wooden boardwalk. The patterns of the boards going diagonal and then intersecting and then continuing down along the stretch of the beach. But that's enough preface. That's enough painting the picture. As they walk across this boardwalk, not boardwalk, my apologies, the first intersection across the street, you can see the walking light blinking red. And across the street, you can see the bus stop. Plenty of people there, just waiting for the bus, perhaps to start their commute to work. And they walk across that intersection when the light turns white, the pedestrian walkman that's glowing white, and they walk across the street. And they pause. They hear something. It's a sound. A very distinctive sound. It appears to be an argument. The female walks across the street, being chased by someone. And a male with a cane hobbles behind her. And at this point, they're in the middle of the street, yelling. I remember the conversation till this day. The female says, I want to go. You can't stop me. I want to go. I want to leave. And the male with the cane yells. He yells at her and says, fine. You want to leave? You can leave. Okay? But you better give back everything that I've ever given you. You better give back everything that's mine. Take off those damn clothes. I apologize for profanity. Take off those clothes now. And he begins to strike her with the cane in the middle of the street. He strikes her, and he forces her to strip. And, well, the female at this point, similar stature to the male, seems so small. She reluctantly begins to strip. She begins to take off her shirt. She begins to take off her pants. And by this point, she's just holding her breasts in the middle of the street naked. And all the while, the male's still yelling at her. He's saying, yeah, those clothes are mine. I bought those for you. You want to leave? But anything that I ever did, okay, the rent, the water, the food, the clothes on your back, it's mine. And to be honest, the conversation after that, it kind of fades into the distance. It's been many years since that day. But to be honest with you, everyone on the street was looking. It was one of those moments where the world kind of stops. The world kind of freezes, if you know what I mean. Everyone pauses what they're doing to look at the commotion. And no one did anything. I didn't do anything. And that's what makes me remember this day. As clear as yesterday. No one did a thing. Quite frankly, an abusive relationship. Something that I'm pretty sure everyone here knows is wrong. They know. You've been taught to do otherwise. Or at least I've been. To stand up for the weak. To defend those who can't. But I stood there that day. And I just watched. And eventually I left. And every one of those people standing at that bus stop, some were sitting on the bench, some were leaning against that little metal frame that everyone waits under. Some had earbuds in, but they weren't listening to whatever they were listening to. They were watching what was going on. Grown men, grown females, some children, all watched and none of them helped her. Well, some people might think, or at least I've thought, well, it's their business, nothing I can do about it. Or, that seems like their problem, not mine. Or perhaps that seems like family business, and you shouldn't deal with others or interfere with other people's situations and stuff like that. But I know perhaps it was shock. Or maybe it was just another regular occurrence, and I just perhaps saw it today. Maybe those people at the bus stop have seen the situation over and over again. But this was just, another morning commute to work. But I don't think that's the case. I think we were bystanders, and nonetheless complicit. And I say this because I think about that today. I should have. I know what I should have done. I should have been like, hey, stop that. And I should have helped her. I should have snatched the clothes from her. Everyone has decent human rights. There is a sense of equality, equity, injustice, and justice. A very fine line. But I'm a coward. I'm a coward because I didn't do anything. And to this day, I remember that. What does it say about me? Nothing but regret. Something else to add to my list. No one bothered to call the police. No one bothered to step up and defend her. Everyone just watched. Now, I could tell you what they were wearing that day, that female, that man with the cane. But I'm curious. Does it matter? Does it matter what clothes they were wearing? Does it matter to say that the female was wearing a t-shirt and some shorts, and they were very thin? You could tell that. The cotton was very thin. The male was imposing, wearing baggy pants, slightly baggy shirt, just a t-shirt, and the cane, and he was hopping towards her, and he was yelling. Everyone was hot and sweaty, with a slight cool breeze going down. Does those details matter? I remember what they looked like, their physical appearance. The male was lanky, slightly built, slightly hunched over to the cane, and the female was, rather large. I say large in the best way possible, but she was obese. But do those details matter, that I can recall them so vividly? I think the most important thing is, I remember their race. Does that matter? When I recount this detail, who did you imagine? And what does that say about you? What does it say about me? They're black. Both of them. The man with the cane, yelling, cursing. The female, the victim. To this day I think about it. No one stepped in. I didn't step in. Now, there are mitigating details and excuses I could make. Hey, everyone didn't do anything. You were not wrong. No, I don't think that's the case. You couldn't have done anything. You couldn't have beat him. What if he attacked you? Were you scared? To be honest with you, there's another detail that I've considered as an excuse, but I realize it's not an excuse. The perspective of that day, the story that I'm telling, they were 5. I know. They were a kid. They couldn't have protected them if they wanted to. But I don't think age is the factor here, Oh, you haven't lived life yet. You're still young. You shouldn't have done anything. You're a child. You may have gotten hurt. No, I don't think that's the case. I think if that child that day went out and said, hey, stop that, I think everyone would have jumped. I think some people, or at least one person, would have come to her defense, if not because a child brought out some ethics, some morality, something that jolt them out. Maybe they were just shocked. Maybe they were frozen in time, just watching and observing. But once you see someone standing out, someone so much smaller than you, so much younger than you, for something that they deem and they know to be right, maybe something would have changed that day. I think about this all the time. When my mind starts to wander, these are one of the stories, some of those vivid memories that come to mind. It doesn't matter your age. We live in a society, and there's some agreed upon morals and some lines that people draw in the sand. And one of those lines is children. My lines is physical abuse, all that injustice, and I should have done something, but I was a kid. But that's not an excuse. I imagine an alternate history where I stood up and said, "Hey, stop that," and I ran in front of the girl. Maybe he would have hit me too. But I think at that point someone would have stood up. And if not, that's still a victory. I think that would have deterred the man at least some bit. I wonder how she's doing today. If she's still in that abusive relationship. Or if she started a life of her own. I can't say. All these are just thoughts as I sit here on this long night.